I'm just really excited to tell you guys how God has manifested in my life and really helped me, especially with this journey with my son. So I was pregnant with my son for about maybe 5 months. He was born at 22 weeks and 3 days.
Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I have a guest for you to speak about her journey with her pregnancy and giving birth to her baby, and to encourage you guys not to give up, have faith in God, and everything will work out. You want to introduce yourself?
Yes. Hi, my name is Adrena. I'm 27 years old, and now I have 2 boys that are healthy and doing well. So I'm just really excited to tell you guys how God has manifested in my life and really helped me, especially with this journey with my son in the NICU. And I'm very grateful that Miss Michelle offered to let me bring this testimony to you guys. And I hope that if it helps anyone who might be going through the same thing, it gives you some encouragement and know that God will always be with you.
And I met him the other day, guys. He is a gem. One day she's gonna show him to you guys, and also she is gonna be starting her own YouTube channel. So this is kind of opening up the door for her.
Okay, so I was pregnant with my son for about maybe 5 months. He was born at 22 weeks and 3 days. He was 1 pound and 4 ounces. And before we got to the actual delivery itself, I remember telling the doctor that I was having a heavy mucal discharge, and she kept telling me it was normal. But if there was any testing done, they would have realized that it was my mucal plug that was shedding, and that the baby was gonna come sooner. But because there's other interventions they could have done, but none of that was done, so we got to the point where my water broke, and then I instantly ran to the hospital, and then they told me that I was in labor. So when I got there, they told me if he lasts 24 hours, they will intervene and try to put a tube in his throat. But if he ends up coming within the next couple hours, they will not help. So they told me to get prepared to basically hold him until he takes his last breath, because the hospital was saying that age of viability is 23 weeks. And he was 22 weeks, so he was 22 in 2 days. So they're like, that's way too young for us to do. But they're like, if he makes it to day 3, we'll try to intervene. So I obviously was praying, hoping that he would last another couple weeks. And then I remember just being in and out of sleep when I was in the hospital. And then I had a dream. And in the dream, it was me walking in a field with a bunch of a grass field with the high grass.
Green.
Yeah, green. Just walking there, and then out of nowhere I got somewhere where it was hay. It was the barley grass and stuff. And then all I saw was a lion who walked up to me.
Wow.
But I wasn't afraid. The lion just came and sat next to me.
Wow.
And then I woke up. And then shortly after that, my son's father called and he said, "Oh, what do you think about calling him Leon?" And then Leon means lion.
Lion.
So
okay.
I was like, oh. But it's funny because we didn't know the sex. But that's before they told us he was a boy. We found out his sex when he was actually born, when he was delivered. When they did the x-ray, they thought he was a girl.
Okay.
So then we started pivoting, looking for girl names. We were looking for different girl names and stuff, and I was like, yeah, are we gonna call her Leonana? If it's a girl and stuff like that. So we're just coming up with stuff. And then I think when it hit about midnight, I fell asleep. And I saw myself in an old apartment with my oldest son. And I was sitting down and I was taking care of a baby. But the baby looked to be bounded by something. But it wasn't anything to his throat, or it was just bounded on his stomach. So that, I don't know what that meant. But the baby was a boy. So when I saw the baby later on, I saw my oldest son and a little boy running and them just playing around. And then all I heard was, "Mommy, wake up!" And then it's like something slapped me awake.
That time you didn't give birth yet?
Didn't give birth yet.
Okay.
When I had that dream.
Right.
But when I had the dream and something said, "Mommy, wake up!" and slapped me, I was like, what was that? I was in shock. I don't know what it was. So I woke up and all of a sudden I was having
In
a heavy
labor.
contraction, and I was in labor, and I was like almost fully dilated by then. And then I'm like, oh, God is telling me I'm not gonna have this baby. He's showing me that my next baby is gonna be a boy because I thought I was gonna give birth to a girl.
Okay.
So we get to the labor. They're like, he's not gonna make it through the actual labor part because he's really young. They said they won't intervene for a C-section. If they do, I will bleed out because I was too early. So I had to do natural birth. So I did the natural birth, and they said that most likely his skull will not support me pushing him out. So like, get prepared that he might, pass away right after I push him out. So I had to go through labor, and I pushed him out, and he came out, but obviously there was no crying. It was really silent in that room. They're like, oh my God, and they're like, oh, it's a boy. And that's when I knew.
So he did not even cry when he came out?
No crying, no sound, nothing. Like, completely just silence in that room. Yeah. So when he came out, they were like, oh, it's a boy. And that's when it instantly clicked to me. Oh my gosh, like, that was like, so I kept that dream to myself the whole time. I never told anyone about the dream, about like the lion, or even like me getting the dream of 2 little boys.
I wonder if that lion was like telling you whatever is gonna happen, you're gonna have to be strong. I wonder. I don't know. Sometimes dreams have different meanings. I don't know how I would interpret that dream.
Me too. One of the I know that they call God like Lion of Judah.
Okay.
So I was wondering if that was him basically saying he's gonna be with me through this journey.
Right.
So I didn't know at the time, living through it, and even though I had the dream, I still sometimes would get very like lost and confused, and why is this happening to me and all of this. So I don't know, like, so it happened, and then they told me day 1 he was good. The tube went in, he was breathing at 100%.
Wow.
Everything looked really
at 1 pound.
At 1 pound, his oxygen was at 100%. His heart rate was stable. He was completely rock solid stable in the first day, to the point where they were like, okay, we're gonna try to like decrease his pressures because he's doing so well. When they actually went and tried to decrease his pressure, that's when everything went left. He was like day 3 at that time. The moment they tried to drop his respiratory pressures, he started tanking. He was going to 60% oxygen.
Wow.
And then his heart rate was going really high. They could never get him stable. To the point where the normal for us for that first week was like him being at 75. That was like a victory if he made it to 75. So I remember by day 3, he was also diagnosed with IVH grade 4, which means he had a brain bleed, and it was level 4. Level 4 is one of the highest levels with the brain bleed. So they told us that he has no viability, no life, no chance of surviving, and no chance of having a life. Like, with that diagnosis, it really just meant that the doctor was trying to tell us that he doesn't have a life. He's not gonna have a life outside of the hospital, outside of anything. Every function he will need to do, he will require assistance to do it. And I remember sitting in that room and the doctor talking, and I just was listening, but like, I didn't give any reaction. I never cried. Like, the whole time.
You never cried?
I never cried when the doctors told me anything crazy. At one point, they wanted to get me evaluated because they didn't think I was okay because I never reacted.
You never showed no reaction?
Yes.
Or you never reacted how they wanted
me to react. So I never cried, but obviously my cousin who was in the room and my son's father was there, and they were crying, and they were like so sad about the diagnosis, and they told us we have to wait till he gets to day 10, if he gets to day 10, to then figure out what the blood is going to do in his brain.
So the blood is caused because of you pushing him out, or?
They said it seems like the blood clot happened prior to the actual labor, because the blood seems like thicker. So they're saying they don't think it was a fresh brain bleed, and it would have been better if it happened freshly because they resolve quicker. But the fact that it's a clot that's there, it's growing and it's damaging the nerves in his brain.
Wow.
That's what they were telling us. So I was obviously, in my mind, I'm still thinking about the dream. And I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna see how this is gonna go, because this is not my first time having predictive dreams. I've had predictive dreams before in my life, so I just wanted to see how it was gonna go. But I was just listening to the doctors. I wasn't really focused on God at the time. Like I still was like, let me see how this is gonna pan out. Then I remember at day 7, when they had to look at his brain again to see what the blood is doing, the lady came and told me, oh, it's a miracle that he's even here for 7 days. And she's like, we would not look at you differently if you decide to disconnect him.
Wow.
They're
So
like-
he was hooked up to all kind of monitors and
Yes, he
life
had
support.
The respiratory tube in his throat. He had a bunch of IVs. He had a bunch of medications to help him. Basically, they were trying to stabilize him as best as they could. So he was taking medication for every function in the book, because his kidneys started tanking. So they had to give him hormone, like they had to give him hydrocortisone to keep his kidneys functions up, which would keep his blood pressure so that his organs don't fail. So from the first week of his life, he was really fighting. Like he was fighting hard. And I know in hindsight, the nurses felt like we were dragging him along for no reason, because again, like I've told you before, like they were pushing for me to disconnect him, pushing for me to give up, pushing for me to just put him on palliative care and just give him medication until he takes his last breath. So day 7, he gets diagnosed. They're like, the blood is still there. It doesn't look like it's gonna move. It's seeming like it's just gonna grow and probably destroy his brain, which would then, they were saying that his brain would grow and it'll pop like a balloon.
Oh God.
And which would then render him brain dead.
Yeah.
So that's what they were telling us. But I remember in my head, I'm like, this is the blood of. By that day, I started praying, and I was saying, because I recently lost my dad, so I was like, I was very scared through this journey because I just buried someone, and I was like, I cannot go through another death. So I remembered when they were telling me the blood is not going anywhere, and I'm like, you know what, this is a protection for him, because due to his brain bleed, certain interventions they would be able to do for him, they didn't really look at them because they felt like he wasn't a perfect candidate. They were like, he has a brain bleed. We don't feel like we need to use this many resources on him with a brain bleed because it might not even pan out. So, in a sense, it was a protection for him because there was a medication they were supposed to give him because he had a hole in his heart by week 2 of his life. And they said, oh, we can't give it to him because it's a blood thinner and we don't know if it's going to impact the brain. So they told me we have to do something different, something less invasive. So they gave him a second drug that's supposed to help him with the PDA in his heart. And they were like, we doubt it's going to help, but we can try it. They did it and it worked on the first try.
Oh wow.
Yes.
God is amazing.
Literally, like on the first round, it worked. His heart, the PDA closed, and then I was so happy, and I remember telling them, please do not give him any more Lasix, because they would give him Lasix, his kidneys would tank, his blood pressure will go down, and then they'll tell me he needs to be disconnected because no blood pressure, no life, no respiratory, so
that's scary.
it is. It was a very, very, very long journey. Miss Michelle, it was a very long journey for me. Like, I remember on the Sunday, he was basically officially a week old, and that Sunday, they told me it's time to disconnect him because he was then by that point 4 days without urinating, so he hasn't peed in days.
So they wanted to say now his organs are failing.
Yes, they wanted to say that his organs are failing and he's drowning in his own like fluid because his kidneys are not perfusing well. So they're saying the kidneys are not working well. He's not peeing. He's not getting out water. We have to they're like he won't make it through the night. That's what they told me. And I remember the nurse that was working with him that night she was very scared because she was the one that pushed for them to give him Lasix and morphine, and both those medications impacted his kidney. So I remember.
Why were they giving him morphine?
Because he looked very like red and irritated, and she felt like he needed some type of pain control, and they chose to go with morphine. My son was, even the doctors, they didn't know, they were getting frustrated with him because the drugs that would work with babies regularly didn't work for him. They had to find something else to work with him every time. So that happened, and when I remember that night, during the day when they're telling me that he's not peeing and by tonight it's probably going to be his last day.
And you had to spend the whole time there, right?
I spent the whole day, and they had rooms for parents. If they feel like your kid is really bad, they would give you a room. So like if you get a room, you know that your child is doing really bad, and just in case if you have to be there for their last minute. So they gave me a room, and they told me, you know, we don't know what you're going to want to do. Maybe you want to finally hold him because you haven't held him since he's been born. And then I told them, when it's time to hold him, I'll know. And then I remember at about 12 in the afternoon, I was praying, and I fell asleep. When I fell asleep, in the dream, I saw that Khalil fell out of the incubator, and he fell on the floor. And they were saying, oh, this is it for him. Like, you need to just put him in the trash. But then in the dream, a voice told me to pick him up, cover him, and leave him alone. And that's what I did in the dream. And when I did that, I just saw like a light glowing out of him. And literally, and then I woke up right after that. So I have that dream. I'm just praying. And literally, the night comes and it's midnight. And they're like, we've tried everything we could. It's time for you to disconnect him. And he's not going to make it through the night. I think that was the first day I actually cried when they finally told me something about him. And then I was like just in shock. I just shed a tear. And then they were like, if you want to hold him, we can give him to you. Like, just let us know what you want to do. And then I remember I was about to tell them, let me hold them. And then something stopped me, and I said, since you guys said you're out of options, we're going to leave him in God's hands. And then I said, cover him back up. And they looked at me. And I'm like, cover him back up. Do not touch him. Do not do any intervention. Just leave him. They're like, do you want us to disconnect? I said, do not disconnect anything. Leave him exactly how it is.
Why they wanted to just hurry and just disconnect him just like that?
Everything. Do you want to remove? No. Leave him exactly how it is. Do not add. Do not remove. Leave him. Cover him. And I stayed next to him that whole night. Just praying. My family was on FaceTime praying with me. And then I remember the last time she can change him because she leaves at 7. So she said, can I please check his diaper now? And I said, okay. She goes to check his diaper, Miss Michelle. He flooded the whole bed.
Oh my God.
Like he flooded the whole bed.
That's God.
It was. And I remember like instantly I just fell on my knees, started praying.
That was all the prayers that made him pee. And he wasn't peeing for how long?
4 days.
Wow.
So I literally fell on my knees and I just started praying, thanking God. Like, and I know I look crazy to them every day. And then from there on, it solidified that this journey was going to be hard, but I knew it wasn't going to be to no end.
He was, the minute he peed, I would start just looking up.
Yes, I was praying, just started praying, thanking God. And then from there on, anytime the doctors came to tell me something, I said, okay, leave it in God's hand. And some of them would get so annoyed that I would say that to them. Like, are you not understanding what I'm saying? And I'm like, you're out of options, leave it in God's hand. That's what I told them. And I'm like, your knowledge is not further than his knowledge.
Right.
And they would get so mad. Some would get annoyed. So all of that happened, and then his biggest battle, Miss Michelle, was his breathing. And for me, it was really like I started getting impatient because I'm like, why is he still going through such a hard time with breathing? Everything else is going well, but why can't the lungs get it together? You know? Even the blood just stayed there, never moved, never grew.
Even now?
even the blood is completely gone now.
Oh, wow.
Yes. But during everything happening, even the blood, it just stayed there. Like, never grew, never expanded. It just stayed there, Miss Michelle.
Yeah. And they can't figure even why.
They can't. They can't figure out why the blood is just there, not doing anything. So, I remember, like, literally asking God, like, why me, and then I fell on a video on YouTube of someone who was preaching, and she said that
Don't say why me.
don't say why me. Yeah,
Say
and
try me.
yes,
Yeah.
and she also explained to us that Jesus Christ, who was probably the most perfect human being to walk the earth, went through trials and tribulations. And she said, who are we to feel like we can't go through trials? And I remember after that, I literally just stopped asking God why me, because who am I, you know, to question him about what's going on with my kid. And my son, his biggest issue was respiratory. So even if people would try to make it the brain, the blood was always just there, never did anything. And I remember by 1 month, everyone is like, oh my gosh, like, it's been 1 month, he's still doing the same thing, going up and down with his respiratory, he's not getting it. By that point, I'm doing shifts with these nurses. I'm going from 7 in the morning to 7 at night.
Wow.
And when I show up, I ask everyone to not talk to me for an hour because I'm praying. So the doctors would wait an hour after I come in to talk to me about him. So I remember I got there, and I remember hearing the nurse give a report. And the report just did not sound like the baby I was watching. So I said, no, that's not correct.
What was the report?
She was reporting that she doesn't believe he has any functions on his own, and that only the drugs and the machines are doing it for him. So she felt like his blood pressure is not going down because he's on hydrocortisone. She feels like his his heart rate is still beating because he's on the hydrocortisone.
Machine is doing it for him.
Yes, so she was telling the younger nurse that she feels like the brain function is completely gone, and that he's not breathing on his own. His heart rate's not staying up on his own.
I am the only